by randomness if it's not really random since we're planning it, but it's about randomness.
So you are an inspiration for me to choose to do randomness because we talk quite a bit about chaos and order and entropy, which is going from one to the other, and a lot of different quantum physicists' theories.
Hmm.
But you seem to like randomness and chaos, so I wanted to ask you why.
I like it because it's just random, No, the real truth of it is we started talking about how there was a Frasier episode on one night or a Seinfeld episode. And I thought, I have all these DVDs of Seinfeld. I could just watch them anytime I want. And
Hmm.
they're up there and it's great having them and I can see the whole series if I wanted to binge watch. Yet, for some reason, I really have that inkling to turn on the TV and see which episode is on tonight because of the randomness of it. And we started into a conversation about that. And there was some kind of feeling. I don't know if it's like you're what do they call it? You're pulling the slot machine or something to see what occurs.
Mm-hmm.
But when I often see what episode of Seinfeld is on, I say, aha, that relates to the day.
Hmm.
And somehow it really does. And I think, in a way, with my interest with randomness and with quantum physics and energy and everything that we talk about, it's kind of neat because that episode interjects into often what was occurring that day for me. And I think, how did that happen?
So would it be fair to say that you're also um, it's your way of kind of connecting with the energy. It's because the energy is going to connect with us all at some point. Yet if you move with randomness, I kind of feel like you're giving the energy kind of a little bit of like a step up, like you're kind of helping it a little bit.
Well, I agree. It's like you're inviting the energy to the table with you.
And so um, the younger generation of nowadays, we've had so many conversations that it's an amazing group of people, but every generation seems to have their, I'll say, dysfunction.
Mm,
We all grow up. I mean, our generation, we talk about our parents. Parents weren't there, and all the things that you did, they never knew.
right.
And then, of course, this generation has, certain things. And the reason I mention that is that the ability to have randomness nowadays is not like it used to be. I mean, because like you said, binge watching,
Right.
you can sit down and you can happen to just pick, I want to watch, like you said, Seinfeld or Frasier or 30 Rock or any show that you want. And you can sit down and literally watch every single episode
Right.
or open up to, oh my gosh, I love this episode. Whereas, like you said, sometimes you have a bad day. If you sit down and you're like, oh, I just kind of need to debunk from the day, you put on the TV. And if it's, Seinfeld, whatever it is, sometimes, you know, I've had, because I don't know Seinfeld as well as you, yet I'll hear it and I'll be like, Julie, did you hear? This is what he said. Did you hear that? That completely relates to what we were talking about. I never heard that. And you'll be like, wait a minute, I didn't hear that last time. And you go in and then, you'd want to go to whatever. But sometimes it's the randomness that is really the energy's kind of supporting and trying to help you if you're working through a problem or you're trying to figure out something or you whatever. It can help you out.
I agree with you. And it's funny because sometimes latent within the randomness, there's some randomness where I'll see an aspect of Seinfeld and I'll say, I never saw that part before,
Mm,
whether it be the ending. And I
right.
get that sometimes whoever's broadcasting it sometimes cuts it where they want to or whatever because it's in syndication, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Yet, I think about with binge watching, sure, you can sit there and you can really be in the story, you can be in the characters, you can be in the environment, but there's not a heck of a lot of randomness to that. And you can actually overlay that to your day. If you do the same things every day, what's random?
So that even relates. I mean, we started talking about binge watching, but it also relates to, I'm not going to name different, but you can listen to any music you want at any point during the day. If you have a
Hmm.
subscription to any of the, the what do you call
The
it?
apps or anything, yeah.
Apps that play music,
Right.
and at that point you can listen to anything. And so the randomness, I was thinking about that even for, new artists that are, radio's going away. I
Right.
mean, traditional radio, I mean, hello, we're doing this, right? And it's like the radio is the randomness of catching something and saying, oh my God, I can't believe I just heard that. I was trying to get information about whatever. Where am I going to find this? And they just said on the radio, so and so's having a sale, and you can get, you don't, the randomness. It's actually an interesting concept. And so, of course, that's why, when you said you want to do a live broadcast or do we want to record it? I'm like, it's going to be on randomness, so it should be random. And whoever catches it, catches it. Who doesn't, this will be, up and you can go back and search for it. But, it's fascinating when you think about energy. And yet, I guess the truth is the energy is going to speak to you one way or another. And that randomness is going to come up and come in. So if you have a generation of people who are less comfortable in chaos and in uncertainty, and randomness is something that they kind of irk away from, they would prefer things to be more, expected. They have expectations. What does that do for you? You kind of fall into that space of needing everything to be just so,
right?
And being able to work with the quirks of the day, of the year, of the event that you're in, of whatever, becomes almost an insurmountable subject.
Feat. Yeah.
You just
you can get trapped in order, which is kind of funny, because if you're, chaos is what usually everybody runs away from. And if you're, embrace chaos, a lot of entrepreneurs, they say, embrace uncertainty and chaos, which is part of their drive. And that gives them that extra boost to kind of, fulfill their desires and their dreams. Yet a lot of people run from chaos and they want order, but that's the natural order of things, is to move from chaos to order. So it's going to move anyway. That's just science. I know we've talked about it. It's in our books. It's in what we know. And the funny thing about it is, if you take it and you even apply that in with binge watching, it's interesting to watch, because if you, and not to pick on, young people or people who are doing binge watching, but you're addicted to your phone often, and you're texting and you're tweeting and you're putting, images on Facebook and whatever, Instagram, blah, blah, blah. And yet you have this show on that's complete order. So you're pushing yourself into chaos, because there's a little bit of, disorder in all those applications. And you're kind of almost playing a little game with yourself. So you might wonder, I don't know if there are any science studies done, but I bet there are, where, attention deficit comes from and all that.
They've been diagnosing that. But, but the other part of that that's interesting that you mentioned is, if people aren't comfortable in uncertainty, then, when you develop who you are and who you want to become, it takes a lot of dedication, whatever it is that you choose to do. Grow a company, become an artist, a writer, whatever it is, a cook, you want to go to school. All of that takes a little bit of time and a little bit of patience. And in that time, time is really the precursor to order and disorder, because it's in time that you feel those two huge gaps. And if you're going for something, you're going to grow a company, you're going to have ups and downs. I don't care who you are. I'm a little bit older than everybody out there. And, with anything that you want to do, no matter what it is, there's ups and downs. And you know what? When it's on the up, it's great. But when it hits that down, that's when uncertainty comes in. And for people who are uncomfortable with that, how do they find that place within themselves to give them the drive to push through it? And that's really a lot of what it takes in this world to be yourself. The drive isn't outside forces, it's within yourself, to stay with it and believe in it. And if you're uncomfortable in uncertainty, how do you, then it's like, again, I'm going to go back to this huge thing to work through. And wouldn't it mean that, everybody who's, when they're, 16 years old and they have hit songs and they're multimillionaires and they've got cars and they've done, that's it. And if you're not that person, then you're a failure. And I think that's the saddest part of all of this, is that it takes, in life, you have your ups and your downs, And it's not because something's wrong or you don't deserve it. It's because that's part of the growing that you need to go through to experience and to make yourself better. We all have to. And if you're not comfortable in the slightest bit of uncertainty, you run from it.
Right. And that's also finding balance in the up and the down. And, the beautiful thing about randomness is that, you can still find synchronicity in it. And you can still, that's very, very alluring because there's a multitude of energy in that. And what occurs if your awareness kind of moves with that rather than, oh crap, I'm uncertain about what I'm going to do, where I'm going to go, what's going to happen. There's a beautiful rawness to that energy that just has complete possibility and complete potential for anything to occur that you can react to or enact with or just be with.
I agree with you. My question, because I always have questions. I always have questions and I don't ever let anything just slip by, is when you've been accustomed to everything being relatively certain, having expectations, either they're met, and if they're not met, things occur that then they become, palliative in terms of, okay, well, we'll make it through this. How does one find that? How does one find that comfortableness in uncertainty, especially when you haven't been able to practice it?
Sometimes those things that feel the most uncomfortable become comfortable after you wear them for a while. So when, if you have that, it sounds like what you described sounds like, I'm going to go into the word, a pattern. And if you have awareness of that as a pattern and you veer off of it a little bit, you take a left instead of a right in what occurs. It's not what occurs every day, but it's something different. That's a first step into an uncertainty. It could be a tiny little step. It could be a huge step into uncertainty.
So for me, the only thing I go to is because I ask a question and I go to where I go and I listen to what you say. And then I say what feels right about that, what can I I can relate to. And the only thing I get when that happens is you have to almost have that, they say blind faith and trust. And, there's a lot of things in my life that is through the randomness that things worked out. The things that I planned and I trust, I won't say trusted, but the things I planned and I worked towards and it has to be this way, things worked out. But, if I just kind of stayed out of it a little bit more, they might have worked out even better and stronger. And it's when times occurred in my life when I had no control over anything that things worked out in ways I could never have imagined.
And that's really cool. That's being in possibility. And yet, the funny thing is, of course, we're all trained, to just, this is the way it is, this is how it should happen, this is what you have to do, this is the process. And you really have to kind of push a lot of that away and find your own truth and how it works for you and get into a point of clarity.
And the key to that, because I always go to it, is you have to find who you really are. And that, my friends, is the biggest challenge for all of us here, because then you have to accept that you don't fit in. Because none of us fit in.
Right.
Yet we all belong.
Right.
So that's the dichotomy, but it makes perfect sense. None of us fit in. We were not meant to fit in. And when you start to embrace that and you have compassion and love for yourself, well, by default, you have compassion and love for others. And you realize that we all fit in, but we're not supposed to be the same.
Right.
And then once that occurs, then I think you can be more comfortable with randomness and uncertainty.
Right. And the beautiful part from what you just stated, which was beautifully synopsized, was that to go just a little bit further is that we're all connected. So when that occurs, just even understanding that we're all connected. I mean, of course we're all connected. We all belong together. We all.
Yeah, but sometimes life doesn't feel that way.
Yeah,
sometimes
I know.
you're around and it doesn't feel like that. And that's where you have to look outside and you have to know that that's not all that there is. There's more that we don't understand. And then that goes into the faith. And then, one thing I've always said is, can always trust the energy. Energy always has your back. And sometimes because it's not a doesn't appear with a face. It doesn't appear with, eyes and a nose that we don't believe it's real. Yet I always go to the wind. The wind you don't see. You don't even know the wind's out there until either you step in it or you see trees moving. You can't see wind. But, I realized that funnel cloud is the only thing. The wind is the one thing that can pick up the ocean.
Mm.
So, you don't see it, but, it does. And that's I understood in science with the tsunami. It's the winds that are picking up the water and created it, whatever. I don't want to get into a science because I can't discuss it that well. So, but it's, it's amazing. And it's like, if I sit there and I think about that and I think about who we are and where we are and what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, I can somehow find that within me to be okay with the uncertainty and trust a higher energy.
So a lot of good stuff in this live broadcast, and embracing randomness can lead to incredible possibility, and embracing uncertainty as well. And sometimes it's little steps, big steps, however it occurs based in your own truth.
And so we're going to be talking a little bit more about it, and maybe it won't be so random. We'll have some scheduled shows too. But thanks for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful, chaotic,
random
day.
Random day. And go ahead over to eipublishing.com and check out some of our other entertaining podcasts about energy, about the Kabbalion, about lots of interesting things, right? And we'll have more. Thanks for joining us.